Elon Musk by Walter Isaacson. Comprehensive summary. Introduction. Elon Musk by Walter Isaacson presents an intimate and comprehensive portrait of one of the most influential and controversial figures of the 21st century, exploring how Musk's unique combination of visionary thinking, relentless drive, and often destructive personality traits has enabled him to revolutionize multiple industries while simultaneously creating unprecedented challenges for those who work with him. Drawing from extensive interviews with Musk himself, his family members, employees, and associates across his various ventures, Isaacson constructs a nuanced biography that examines both the extraordinary achievements and significant personal costs associated with Musk's approach to innovation and leadership. The book challenges simple narratives about genius and success by demonstrating how Musk's greatest strengths, his ability to envision seemingly impossible futures, his willingness to take massive risks, and his capacity for sustained focus on long-term objectives, are inextricably linked to personal characteristics that create chaos and suffering for those around him, including mood volatility, interpersonal harshness, and an apparent inability to maintain stable personal relationships. Rather than presenting Musk as either hero or villain, Isaacson explores the complex reality of an individual whose contributions to space exploration, electric vehicles, and renewable energy may prove historically significant, while his management style and personal behavior raise serious questions about the human costs of revolutionary innovation. For readers seeking to understand modern entrepreneurship, the psychology of innovation, or the relationship between personal dysfunction and professional achievement, Elon Musk offers both inspirational examples of visionary leadership and cautionary insights about the potential consequences of pursuing ambitious goals without adequate attention to human relationships and emotional intelligence. Overview of the book. Isaacson structures his biography chronologically while weaving thematic threads that illuminate consistent patterns in Musk's personality, decision-making, and relationship dynamics across different life phases and business contexts. The book begins with Musk's challenging childhood in South Africa, exploring how early experiences with family dysfunction, social isolation, and academic challenges shaped his worldview and coping mechanisms in ways that continue to influence his adult behavior and leadership approach. Early chapters trace his immigration to North America, his educational experiences, and his initial entrepreneurial ventures, including Zip2 and PayPal, demonstrating how foundational business experiences establish patterns of intense work focus, interpersonal conflict, and revolutionary thinking that would characterize his later enterprises. Middle sections examine Musk's simultaneous leadership of multiple companies including SpaceX, Tesla, and various other ventures, exploring how his unique management style, technical involvement, and strategic vision enabled breakthrough innovations while creating organizational chaos and employee burnout. Advanced chapters address Musk's expansion into social media through Twitter acquisition, his growing political involvement, and his increasingly public persona that has made him both cultural icon and lightning rod for criticism about wealth inequality and corporate responsibility. Throughout these progressions, Isaacson balances admiration for Musk's achievements with honest assessment of his limitations, providing specific examples of both brilliant strategic decisions and destructive personal behaviors while maintaining analytical objectivity about their cumulative impact. The book concludes with reflection on Musk's legacy and future potential, examining whether his contributions to human advancement justify the personal and organizational costs associated with his approach to leadership and innovation. Key concepts in Elon Musk. The formative years, childhood trauma, and psychological foundation. Isaacson explores Musk's childhood in South Africa as crucial foundation for understanding his adult personality, examining how early experiences with family dysfunction, social rejection, and academic challenges created psychological patterns that both enable his extraordinary achievements and create ongoing interpersonal difficulties. He traces how Musk's relationship with his father, described as emotionally abusive and psychologically manipulative, established patterns of seeking approval through achievement while simultaneously developing defensive mechanisms that manifest as emotional detachment and harsh treatment of others when under stress. Through interviews with family members and childhood acquaintances, Isaacson demonstrates how young Musk's escape into books, particularly science fiction, provided both refuge from difficult circumstances and inspiration for future visions that would drive his adult ventures in space exploration and technological advancement. The author examines how Musk's experience as a victim of severe bullying at school contributed to his development of thick emotional armor that enables him to persist through criticism and failure, while simultaneously making him less sensitive to the impact of his own harsh treatment of others in professional contexts. Isaacson explores how Musk's early fascination with video games and computer programming provided both technical foundation and psychological outlet that established patterns of intense focus and problem-solving orientation that characterize his adult approach to complex challenges. He addresses how geographical isolation in South Africa, combined with ambitious dreams about America and technology, created internal tension between belonging and escape that continues to influence Musk's relationship with place, identity, and commitment to specific communities or organizations. Throughout this analysis, Isaacson emphasizes how childhood experiences created both the psychological resilience necessary for revolutionary entrepreneurship and the emotional limitations that complicate Musk's relationships and management effectiveness, making his formative years essential for understanding both his remarkable achievements and persistent personal challenges. First principles thinking, engineering approach to problem solving. Isaacson examines Musk's distinctive approach to problem solving through first principles thinking, breaking complex problems down to fundamental truths and rebuilding solutions from basic components rather than accepting conventional wisdom or incremental improvements to existing approaches. He explores how this methodology enables Musk to identify breakthrough opportunities that others miss by questioning fundamental assumptions about what's possible, necessary, or economically viable in various industries, including space exploration, automotive manufacturing, and energy storage. Through detailed examples from SpaceX development, Isaacson demonstrates how first principles thinking led Musk to question why rocket launches cost hundreds of millions of dollars when the raw materials represented only a fraction of that expense, ultimately leading to reusable rocket technology that dramatically reduced space access costs. The author examines how this approach applies across Musk's various ventures, from Tesla's decision to build electric vehicles that compete on performance rather than environmental compromise, to Neuralink's fundamental reimagining of brain-computer interfaces rather than incremental improvements to existing medical devices. Isaacson explores how first principles thinking requires both technical depth and creative imagination, with Musk's ability to understand complex engineering challenges enabling him to identify which conventional limitations represent genuine physical constraints versus arbitrary assumptions that can be overcome through innovative approaches. He addresses how this methodology creates both breakthrough innovations and significant risks, as fundamental rebuilding of complex systems often requires massive resources and time investments with uncertain outcomes that more conservative approaches might avoid. Throughout this discussion, Isaacson emphasizes that first principles thinking represents not just intellectual exercise, but practical approach to revolutionary innovation that distinguishes Musk's companies from competitors who focus on incremental improvements within existing paradigms rather than fundamental reimagining of entire industries and technological systems. Manufacturing and production philosophy. The algorithm and machine building machines. Isaacson explores Musk's obsession with manufacturing efficiency and production optimization, examining how his background in software and physics led him to approach physical production with systematic methodology that treats manufacturing as engineering problem requiring first principles analysis and continuous optimization. He traces the development of what Musk calls the algorithm, a five-step process for production improvement that begins with questioning requirements, eliminating unnecessary components, simplifying and optimizing design, accelerating cycle times, and finally automating processes only after human optimization is complete. Through detailed analysis of Tesla's production challenges and eventual breakthroughs, Isaacson demonstrates how Musk's manufacturing philosophy combines software thinking with physical production realities, creating hybrid approaches that achieve unprecedented efficiency through systematic elimination of waste and complexity. The author examines how Musk's concept of building the machine that builds the machine reflects his belief that production systems deserve as much innovative attention as the products themselves, leading to revolutionary manufacturing approaches that enable cost reduction and quality improvement simultaneously rather than forcing trade-offs between these objectives. Isaacson explores how this manufacturing focus creates competitive advantages that extend beyond individual products to systemic capabilities that compound over time. With each production improvement, creating foundation for subsequent innovations while reducing costs in ways that make advanced technologies accessible to broader markets. He addresses how Musk's manufacturing obsession sometimes creates unrealistic timelines and employee stress when production targets conflict with technical realities or human limitations, demonstrating tension between revolutionary ambition and practical implementation constraints. Throughout this analysis, Isaacson emphasizes that Musk's manufacturing philosophy represents fundamental reimagining of industrial production that combines software scalability concepts with physical manufacturing realities, creating new paradigms for how complex technologies can be produced efficiently while maintaining quality standards that enable mass market adoption. Risk tolerance and crisis management, betting everything on vision. Isaacson examines Musk's extraordinary willingness to risk personal wealth, company survival, and professional reputation in pursuit of long-term visions that others consider impossibly ambitious or economically unfeasible. He explores how Musk's approach to risk differs fundamentally from conventional business wisdom, with decisions often based on technical feasibility and societal importance rather than financial projections or market analysis that typically guide entrepreneurial investment decisions. Through detailed analysis of critical moments, including Tesla's near-bankruptcy periods and SpaceX's early launch failures, Isaacson demonstrates how Musk's crisis management combines rational problem-solving with emotional resilience that enables continued focus on solutions rather than blame or abandonment when facing seemingly insurmountable challenges. The author examines how Musk's willingness to invest his entire fortune multiple times creates both credibility with employees and investors who recognize his commitment, while also generating enormous pressure that affects his emotional state and decision-making quality during crisis periods. Isaacson explores how Musk's risk tolerance extends beyond financial considerations to include reputation, relationships, and personal well-being, with patterns of sacrificing immediate comfort and stability for long-term objectives that may take decades to achieve but promise revolutionary impact if successful. He addresses how this extreme risk tolerance enables breakthrough innovations that more cautious approaches would never attempt, while simultaneously creating ongoing stress and instability that affects everyone associated with Musk's ventures, from employees and investors to family members and partners. Throughout this discussion, Isaacson emphasizes that Musk's risk management represents calculated betting on technological capability and human potential rather than reckless gambling, making his crisis navigation both inspiring example of commitment and cautionary tale about the personal costs of revolutionary entrepreneurship that demands everything from its practitioners. Leadership style, demanding excellence through intensity. Isaacson explores Musk's controversial leadership approach that combines inspirational vision communication with harsh personal criticism and demanding performance standards that push employees beyond conventional limits, while often creating toxic work environments and high turnover rates. He examines how Musk's leadership philosophy centers on the belief that revolutionary goals require revolutionary effort and commitment that cannot be achieved through conventional management approaches, emphasizing work-life balance and employee comfort over mission achievement. Through interviews with current and former employees across Musk's various companies, Isaacson documents both the extraordinary achievements that result from Musk's intense leadership and the personal costs experienced by individuals who work under his demanding standards and harsh feedback style. The author explores how Musk's technical involvement in detailed engineering decisions creates both credibility with technical teams who respect his competence and frustration with managers who struggle to balance his direct interventions with their own authority and decision-making responsibilities. Isaacson addresses how Musk's leadership effectiveness varies significantly depending on crisis situations versus routine operations, with his intense focus and decision-making speed proving valuable during emergencies while creating unnecessary stress and dysfunction during normal business periods. He examines how different personality types respond differently to Musk's leadership style, with some individuals thriving under intense pressure and direct feedback, while others experience burnout and emotional damage that affects their long-term career satisfaction and personal well-being. Throughout this analysis, Isaacson maintains balanced perspective that acknowledges both the extraordinary results achieved through Musk's leadership and the legitimate concerns about sustainability and human impact of management approaches that prioritize mission achievement over individual employee welfare and conventional standards of workplace respect and emotional support. Innovation philosophy, accelerating human progress. Isaacson examines Musk's overarching philosophy about technology's role in human advancement, exploring how his various ventures collectively serve his vision of accelerating human progress toward becoming a multi-planetary species while solving existential threats, including climate change and artificial intelligence risks. He traces how Musk's selection of projects reflects systematic thinking about humanity's long-term survival and flourishing rather than purely commercial considerations, with decisions guided by potential impact on human civilization rather than traditional business metrics like market size or profitability timelines. Through analysis of Musk's public statements and business strategies, Isaacson demonstrates how his innovation philosophy combines optimism about human potential with anxiety about civilizational risks that require proactive technological solutions rather than reactive policy responses that may prove inadequate for addressing exponential threats. The author explores how this philosophical framework influences specific technical decisions across Musk's companies, from SpaceX's focus on Mars colonization and Tesla's emphasis on accelerating sustainable transport adoption to Neuralink's development of brain-computer interfaces that could enhance human cognitive capabilities in an AI-dominated future. Isaacson addresses how Musk's innovation philosophy creates both inspiring motivation for employees and investors who share his vision, while also generating skepticism from critics who question whether his specific technical approaches represent optimal solutions to the problems he identifies. He examines how this long-term thinking affects short-term business decisions, with Musk often choosing strategies that sacrifice immediate profitability or comfort for positioning that serves broader civilizational objectives, even when such choices create operational challenges or competitive disadvantages. Throughout this discussion, Isaacson emphasizes that Musk's innovation philosophy represents a genuine attempt to solve fundamental human challenges rather than merely pursuing personal wealth or fame, making his motivations both admirable in scope and questionable in execution when philosophical commitment conflicts with practical human needs and organizational sustainability. Interpersonal relationships, the cost of genius. Isaacson explores the troubled pattern of Musk's personal relationships, examining how his intense focus on professional objectives and apparent emotional limitations create ongoing challenges in maintaining stable connections with romantic partners, family members, and close friends despite his apparent desire for meaningful relationships. He traces how Musk's marriages and romantic relationships follow similar patterns of initial intensity and shared vision, followed by gradual deterioration as his work demands and emotional unavailability create insurmountable strain on partners who struggle to compete with his professional obsessions for attention and emotional investment. Through interviews with former partners and family members, Isaacson documents how Musk's relationship challenges stem not from lack of caring, but from inability to balance emotional needs with professional demands in ways that sustain intimate connections over extended periods. The author examines how Musk's relationships with his children reflect similar patterns, with genuine love and concern coupled with limited availability and difficulty providing consistent emotional support that children require for healthy development and secure attachment formation. Isaacson addresses how Musk's interpersonal limitations affect his professional relationships as well, with patterns of intense collaboration followed by harsh criticism or abandonment when associates fail to meet his standards or challenge his authority in ways that threaten his control over important decisions. He explores how these relationship patterns create both personal loneliness and professional isolation that may affect Musk's decision-making quality and emotional stability during critical periods when support systems could provide valuable perspective and stress management. Throughout this analysis, Isaacson maintains empathetic perspective that recognizes both Musk's apparent desire for meaningful connections and his real limitations in sustaining relationships that require emotional availability and compromise that compete with his professional mission focus, making his interpersonal struggles both personally tragic and professionally limiting. Public persona and social media, the double-edged platform. Isaacson examines Musk's complex relationship with public attention and social media, exploring how his Twitter usage and public statements create both valuable brand building and serious business risks through impulsive communications that often contradict strategic business interests or create unnecessary controversies. He traces how Musk's social media presence evolved from occasional company updates to constant personal commentary that blurs boundaries between individual expression and corporate communication in ways that create legal and financial complications for his various business ventures. Through analysis of specific Twitter incidents and their consequences, Isaacson demonstrates how Musk's unfiltered communication style generates both authentic connection with supporters and serious problems with regulators, investors, and partners who prefer more predictable and controlled corporate messaging. The author explores how Musk's acquisition of Twitter reflects his broader philosophy about free speech and information control, examining how his management of the platform reveals both his commitment to reducing censorship and his difficulty handling criticism or disagreement with his own viewpoints and business decisions. Isaacson addresses how Musk's public persona creates feedback loops that affect his private decision-making, with social media responses and public criticism influencing business strategies and personal relationships in ways that may not serve optimal outcomes for his companies or personal well-being. He examines how different audiences interpret Musk's communications differently, with supporters viewing his directness as authentic leadership, while critics see dangerous impulsiveness that threatens market stability and democratic discourse through misinformation spread and inflammatory political commentary. Throughout this discussion, Isaacson emphasizes that Musk's social media usage represents both powerful tool for direct communication and significant liability that demonstrates tension between personal authenticity and professional responsibility in an era where individual statements can affect millions of people and billions of dollars in market value. Legacy and future impact. Assessing revolutionary contributions. In concluding sections, Isaacson reflects on Musk's potential historical significance, while acknowledging that final assessment of his contributions requires perspective that can only come with time and distance from current controversies and incomplete projects. He examines how Musk's various ventures have already transformed multiple industries, including space exploration, electric vehicles, and renewable energy in ways that may prove historically significant regardless of his personal limitations or future business outcomes. Isaacson explores how Musk's approach to innovation, combining first principles thinking with massive risk-taking and intense execution, has demonstrated new possibilities for rapid technological advancement that other entrepreneurs and organizations are already beginning to emulate across various fields and applications. The author addresses how Musk's legacy will likely depend on the long-term success of his most ambitious projects, including Mars colonization, sustainable energy transition, and artificial intelligence development, with ultimate historical judgment requiring evaluation of outcomes rather than just intentions or intermediate achievements. Isaacson examines how Musk's influence extends beyond his specific companies to broader cultural changes in how society thinks about technological possibility, entrepreneurial risk-taking, and individual responsibility for addressing civilizational challenges through private initiative rather than purely governmental or institutional responses. He explores how future entrepreneurs and innovators may learn from both Musk's successes and failures, potentially developing approaches that capture his revolutionary vision and technical excellence, while avoiding the interpersonal and organizational costs that characterize his current management style and relationship patterns. Throughout this assessment, Isaacson emphasizes that Musk's ultimate legacy remains unwritten and will depend on factors including the long-term viability of his companies, the success of his technological visions, and whether his influence inspires positive change in how humanity addresses existential challenges through innovation and collective action rather than merely creating cult of personality around individual genius that may not prove sustainable or replicable for addressing complex global problems. Conclusion. Elon Musk offers a nuanced and comprehensive portrait of one of the most influential figures of our time, providing both inspiration and caution about the relationship between revolutionary achievement and personal fulfillment through Isaacson's balanced examination of extraordinary accomplishments and significant human costs. Through his meticulous research and fair-minded analysis, Isaacson creates Biography that serves both as celebration of visionary leadership and warning about the potential consequences of pursuing ambitious goals without adequate attention to emotional intelligence and interpersonal relationships. The work's particular value lies in its refusal to oversimplify complex personality into either heroic or villainous narrative, instead presenting honest assessment of how Musk's greatest strengths and most troubling weaknesses stem from similar psychological sources and create inseparable benefits and costs for individuals and society. For readers seeking to understand modern entrepreneurship, the psychology of innovation, or the challenges of leadership in rapidly changing technological landscape, This biography provides both valuable insights and important questions about what we should expect from leaders who promise to change the world. By presenting Musk as neither role model nor cautionary tale, but rather as complex human being whose contributions and limitations reflect broader tensions between individual achievement and collective well-being, Isaacson creates portrait that serves both historical record and contemporary guidance for anyone grappling with questions about ambition, success, and responsibility in an era where individual actions can have unprecedented global impact.